Good Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harapsky. Shocking new details this afternoon on the investigation into a double murder-suicide in Hopkins. According to police, Nathan Brown stabbed his wife, Kristen, and their 7-year-old daughter to death with a screwdriver. That is according to new search warrants we have obtained today. Then, police say he took his own life in a closet in the upstairs of a daycare. Police now connecting those deaths to another murder at a home in Burnsville, nearly 20 miles away. Police say Brown first killed his wife and daughter at the in-home daycare that they operated since 2019. 6 other children were at the daycare at that time. They were taken out of the residence and they were reunited with family outside of that home. Police say that a parent dropping their child off witnessed the crime, and that is the person who called 911. And that parent said they heard children screaming and saw them witnessing the stabbing in the home. As the Hopkins community was reeling, Burnsville police then discovered a body at the house where Brown was staying.
We believe it is a close family relative of the suspect in Hopkins. The deceased was a female, age 78. The suspect, we believe, had been recently living in that residence in Burnsville.
And I have 2 little kids, and it was just completely shocking to hear.
I'm just hoping that the children are okay.
You can just hear how shocked the neighbors were. Everyone who hears this story, your heart drops. The folks who live there tell us that it's a calm community. Burnsville officers hadn't had any contact with the alleged killer before yesterday. Bottom line, if you or someone you know needs help getting out of a dangerous domestic situation, there is help that is available. It's 24/7. Crisis lines on your screen right now. Take that number down. You can also text that number on the bottom as well. This service is free. Interpreters are available. New this afternoon, St. Paul Mayor Kare unveiling her 2027 budget proposal. That proposal includes a property tax levy increase of 6.8%. That is an annual increase of approximately $58 for the owner of a median valued home there.
I've always been honest with residents that we would not be able to reduce property taxes in the near term. What we can do is grow the tax base so that the cost of providing essential services is shared more broadly. As the investments we have made begin to deliver results, we will continue working to strengthen the city's finances, expand opportunity, and reduce pressure on property tax payers. For now, limiting the levy increase to 6.8% was the most responsible outcome we could achieve while protecting the services residents rely on.
Mayor Herr also announced a staffing drop at the St. Paul Police Department from 660 sworn officers to 605. Saying the department has not employed more than 600 officers in years. Breaking news this afternoon, Luigi Mangione is expected to plead guilty to federal charges connected to the 2024 killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The plea change comes less than a month before he was set to go to trial in a state murder case connected to Thompson's death. Right now, it's not clear if Mangione is going to plead guilty to one or both of the 2 stalking charges in the federal case. If he pleads guilty, Mangione's lawyers are expected to ask for his state charges to be dismissed. This afternoon, a former Mounds View teacher has now been federally indicted on charges that he coerced a student to have sex. 58-year-old Ted Bennett was already facing state charges. Investigators say they found evidence of, quote, multiple forms of sexual conduct on the victim's phone. The charges claim Bennett also gave the alleged victim alcohol and prescription drugs. Mounds View Public Schools previously told KARE 11 that he had been teaching there for 27 years. Right, police are investigating several car break-ins overnight. Police in the North Loop confirming to our photojournalist there that this all happened around downtown. This video near North 3rd Street and North 10th Avenue. We've reached out to police for more information, including how many cars were hit and the police response, but we'll update you as soon as we know more. As Vince Belter sits in jail awaiting his state trial in the shooting of 2 Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses, new blog posts from the convicted political assassin have now appeared on the internet. Here's Lou Raguse.
An odd development in the case of Vance Belter, the man who assassinated State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and shot State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Belter has somehow been able to publish or get someone to publish for him blog posts on Substack while he sits in the Sherburne County Jail. I've confirmed that Belter is indeed the person behind the posts. In them, Belter seems to be alluding to what led him to committing the crimes. He writes how angered he became with Democratic politics over the years and that he believes people with mental illness have been ignored. He doesn't claim to be mentally ill himself, but he writes about people who died by suicide whose bodies he transported in his job with funeral homes. Belter does not overtly express regret. He alludes that voting out elected leaders is the right course of action and that he, quote, failed to act in love. Belter faces a life sentence in federal court, but his trial in state court is still pending.
Thank you, Lou. Turning to the election now, Minnesota primary had winners and losers, of course, but the most impressive win was you. Voter turnout broke an all-time record to make your choices known. Here's Charlotte Cicero.
Results are rolling into the newsroom as we speak.
Minnesota knew this year's primary would be one to watch.
There's a lot of intensity, a lot of passion out there on both sides of the political aisle, and people really showed up.
What people didn't know,
just a hint of what's to come,
was this.
We had never hit 1 million before, and we shot past 1 million and yesterday reached over 1.1 million.
1.1 million votes, a number Secretary of State Steve Simon says is the most Minnesota has ever seen in a primary election.
By the way, we shattered the record. It wasn't even that close.
He's referencing the voter turnout from 2018, which saw almost 200,000 fewer ballots.
They stepped up, they stood up, and they decided to be voters.
Simon, along with political analyst David Schultz,
a lot of things came together for the perfect storm for this incredible turnout.
Help us understand why the turnout topped all totals.
Minnesota broke the record this year for voters in the primary.
It did, and there's lots of reasons for it.
Reasons like the political climate following events like Operation Metro Surge.
The first voting that people really had post-Metro Surge to really express themselves.
Another reason, heavily watched races like the DFL nomination for U.S. Senate seat, which highlighted differences within the Democratic Party.
I really attribute it to a number of really competitive, passionate contests on both sides of the aisle.
You've got competitive elections. You have the divide in the Democratic Party between the more establishment versus the progressives.
Another reason, the rise in younger voters.
The get out the vote activity was at a level we've never seen at all in Minnesota history.
Campaigns are taking notice of the fact that they have to communicate a little bit differently and through other means in order to reach those younger voters. These are races that not only featured candidates people cared about, but there was this perceived closeness in the polls and otherwise, which said to people, hey, you better go out and vote. This could be a real nail biter. We really need your vote. And that tends generally to drive primary turnout, and what definitely did on Tuesday.
Both say they're watching, but don't expect these numbers to lower as we approach November's general election.
We want to be top of the heap, and we are in most years number one in the general election in turnout. So breaking this kind of record means we're in a good position to break more records this fall when we get to the big general election.
I have every reason to believe that the momentum that we saw right now, culminating in the primary, is not going to dissipate.
Right now, at least 3 people are dead after violent storms ripped through the Midwest. 2 of those deaths are in Indiana. Officials saying 1 person died after a suspected weather-related house explosion. They also say a 4-year-old boy was killed when a tree fell on his home. And outside Indianapolis, millions are dealing with catastrophic flooding there. As much as 12 inches of rain falling in 36 hours. Officials say the force of that rushing water even causing roadways to collapse there. A state of emergency is now in effect. NBC's Maggie Vespa reports from Indiana.
Hey there from Cambridge City, where thankfully the water has started to recede, but you can see parts of this neighborhood still underwater, those cars still submerged. But look at that yellow house. You can see the water line there is almost up to the roof. And first responders tell us indeed they were rescuing people in boats off of rooftops here yesterday. It tells you how high this was. This has been wreaking havoc across huge swaths of the state. We have incredible video, stunning, out of Hagerstown, showing people trapped inside a store as water just surged around them. Rescuers had to use a front loader to save them from that situation. In Muncie, we saw rescue boats navigating neighborhoods, people wading through high water to get to safety, some carrying their pets, carrying belongings. And then to show you how high it's risen, how bad this got, We saw water covering huge parts of Cambridge City where we are yesterday. The downtown was partially submerged, cars stalled, and again, that rose exponentially overnight, just now starting to come down. This is all part of a huge summer system that's been slamming the Midwest for days. Flooding has been a big issue also in Ohio. That state's governor saying someone died earlier this week because of storms. And here's the thing, again, huge portions of the entire region are not out of the woods yet, according to forecasters, saying that we could see more rain here in the coming days and frankly, even into the weekend, meaning this flood event might not be over. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Maggie. We are just 2 days away from the first Vikings preseason game. It is this Saturday, and today we're hearing from J.J. McCarthy after KOC chose Kyler Murray over him for starting QB. McCarthy was the highest draft pick at the position of quarterback that this franchise has ever chosen.
Obviously disappointed. I'm a competitor, but at the end of the day, it's in the past, and I'm moving on to the next practice, the next rep, the same mindset I had going into it, and focusing on the Giants this week. I'm really proud of my development. I feel like I've grown in many different areas, and it's going to just continue to do that, and I'm going to keep my head down and keep working.
McCarthy also said despite the disappointment, Kyler's a teammate and somebody that he respects and cares for, just like everyone else. This afternoon, social media is flooding with photos of yesterday's solar eclipse, but it appears that no photo was like the one of a Red Bull athlete flying past the phenomenon. Our Patrick Cornell has more.
This week, the world watched the moon pass in front of the sun. One of the wildest photos from the full eclipse shows a wingsuit athlete eclipsing the eclipse, passing in front of the phenomenon at more than 150 miles per hour. Red Bull's Mike Brewer and photographer Noah Wetzel concocted the idea, the product of 9 months of meticulous planning, launching from Almería, Spain, just as the moon began to black out the sun, crossing in front of the total eclipse with perfect timing for a photographer to grab this spectacular shot of the stunning moment, who later said, "This is as good as it gets."
Amazing. The next total solar eclipse is expected August of next year and will be visible in parts of Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Stick with us. We got more news and weather. It's coming up right after the break.